Hey everybody, some Gadget Guy, and we're really excited. The new Nokia Camera app is already out on the market for Pureview camera devices. We've got it loaded up on the Lumia 1020. I actually haven't had any time to play with it. We're going straight to a video showing off all of the new features, the new layout for all of you fine folks. So let's go ahead and fire this camera up. And hello, start shooting with Nokia Camera in just a few easy steps. Swipe to start. We're gonna swipe, so the same zoom action, just as we're used to from before. What's kind of interesting is watching people use this camera, they're used to pinch to zoom, but on a Lumia, it's slide to zoom. Now we've got settings at the top, apparently, so if we want different presets. Oh, and then we can get back into the Pro features, which we're used to on the Nokia Pro camera. And this is what's really exciting is now Smart Camera is built into one app. We had these smart shooting settings before, but you had to go to a different app. So if you wanted best shot capabilities, you'd have to go to Nokia Smart Camera. And if you wanted manual photography settings, you went to Nokia Pro Camera. Now they're all in one. Oh, and that's cool. I didn't actually realize that that's what the difference was. So if you want to go to your camera roll, you can go to this icon. But if you want to take the last picture that you just shot and reframe it so that you can make it look pretty or crop it or do some photo editing, you're going to go to that second bubble right there. And we got another one of these. Oh, now it's just showing us how to reframe and crop and stuff like that. And all of those are pretty well-known gestures, pinching and twisting and stuff like that. We can skip that. Oh, and at any time we can come back to this tutorial if we want to check it out, but let's get back into the actual camera. That's all there is to it, so we're gonna hit start. So already we can see the new controls here on the right-hand side. If I wanna toggle into video, that's up at the top. If I wanna go into best shot and I wanna take a series of shots, I can go into this smart setting. And so now with holding the phone steady, I would just hit that and it would take a series of shots, like a burst of shots, and then it would let you pick which one you think is the best. If we go into video, we can see what the video mode looks like. And it looks pretty much the same as it used to on the Nokia Pro camera app. And now if we come back to the actual photography, the camera settings, we're going to see our flash controls are at the top here at the left, and right now it's in auto. So the camera's gonna do all of the work in picking the white balance and the exposure and the focus for us. If we tap on this, now we get options to control the various photography features on the Lumia 1020. It's extremely helpful being able to do things like dial in a specific white balance. So if I slide this up, we can really cool this out. Our little slinky is gonna be a steel blue and the background's gonna be super blue, or we can warm it up a little bit if we want more orange and yellows to be represented in the stool in front of us. Reality is probably somewhere closer to there. But then again, I'm also shooting this on a Canon camera and it's got its own auto white balance going at the same time. So I'm gonna leave that on automatic. We also have manual focus. So if I zoom in first and then I hit manual focus, I can dial in specifically how far I wanna focus in. So if I wanna get the slinky, I can get pretty sharp right there. Or if I wanna pass the slinky for something blurry, I can zoom out even further, or I can focus out even further and I can get the detail in the blankets on my back wall and the slinky's not in focus anymore, but we're gonna leave that back in auto. Now we also have ISO sensitivities, just like we used to on the Smart Camera app. We can really specifically dial in a much hotter ISO, or a much brighter ISO, I should say, not hotter. And so this is cranking up the light sensitivity on the sensor. This will result in grainier images, but you can force the camera to a brighter exposure by dialing these in. And then it'll compensate for exposure. And you can see the numbers right here on the shutter speed are changing in relation to how high I'm dialing in the ISO. So if I pick a really low ISO, ISO 100, the shutter speed is already telling me it's going to take 1/13 of a second to get a good exposure or a balanced exposure for the rings. And I can actually change the exposure in the brightness settings over here. So if I want to underexpose and make the image really, really dark, now we'll see that shutter speed correspond and compensate. So now it's a faster shutter speed so that less light will actually be hitting the image sensor. And I can do the same thing if I want it super, super bright. Now it's to 6/10 of a second, and that's a really long time to leave your shutter open. But I'm gonna go ahead and set this back to 0 for a balanced exposure. And then the same thing, we can control the shutter speed. So if we want to, we can force a darker or a brighter image by controlling how long we're gonna open up the shutter. And it's kind of interesting that this can go to 1/16,000th of a second in terms of shutter speed, which I believe is even faster than my Canon SLR. So especially when you're in bright, super bright conditions, you can do a pretty good job of dialing in a shutter speed that will compensate for super bright light. But I'm gonna set all these back to auto so we can go back there. And that's good there. But let's say we don't wanna mess with individual photography settings, and I'm gonna turn that on auto, there we go. In that middle A, we can also select things like that's a nighttime mode, that's a sports mode, and we're back to auto. So okay, so it looks like we only have a couple different modes to play with. It's not like a Samsung camera where you've got a ton of different modes that you can choose from. So we can choose auto, nighttime mode if we wanna open up the shutter a little bit more, let it, expose for darker conditions. Or if we want fast action, we can go into a sports mode, and that's gonna crank up the shutter speeds, hopefully also crank up the ISO so that the camera can lock focus faster and snap the pic faster. And then if we wanna autofocus, we can just tap the screen anywhere just like we used to before. But I'm gonna set that back to auto. And what's cool is all of these settings should be accessible. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again, that was cool. So all of these are individual sliders, and you can tap on each one to get to an individual setting. But if you want to get to all of them, to control all of them quickly, you pull the camera button out, and then all of them line up, and you can dial all of these back and forth very, very quickly before you jump in. So if we want a really fast shutter speed, to compensate, we're gonna have a high ISO. We're gonna manually focus onto the slinky right there. And then I want that to be a little bit cooler, right about there. And then we go and take the picture from there. And so the layout of this app makes so much more sense than having two separate app solutions to do professional style photography or smart burst mode photography. So now moving back and forth is so much easier because you don't have to remember that smart camera provides you one set of features and pro camera provides you another set of features. You can go directly to one camera app and be able to toggle exactly the kind of photography that you want to do. So now holding the phone steady, we're going to take a burst shot. It's going to focus. And I forget exactly how many exposures it takes, but we can now come in, and if we hit this, it's telling us that it thinks this is the best shot for us to use. And then we have a series of options in here. If we want to remove something in the background, if we want to change faces, so like let's say someone's smiling in one exposure and their eyes are closed in another, you can swap faces out. It will select what it thinks is the best shot, so we could pick this one and just be done with it. We can also do action shot, which will do a series. So like say someone's jumping a curb on a skateboard, it'll do a series of exposures for us to do a cool photo effect there. And then I'm not entirely sure what motion focus is. Can't find enough. Oh, so this is if we want to do something like a cinematograph or if we want to make a GIF. So we can do focus on something and then it'll select movement in the background. Unfortunately, I don't have anything that's moving right now, so this doesn't really do anything for us here. And so when we're in the pro camera side, of the app, if we come up to our little menu option here, there are a couple other things that are really cool. One, we can get into lenses. And lenses are just the various like photo filters and photo services that are currently installed in on the phone. So if I want to send something to Instagram, I can hit my 6 tag, or if I want to send it to CamWow and do some photo editing, if I want to make a cinematograph, all of these things are found in lenses. I'm gonna come back. One other setting that people aren't always aware of under this menu is bracketing. Now there isn't a native HDR setting in the Nokia Camera app, but you can bracket. And that means the camera is gonna take either 3 or 5 exposures automatically. at varying exposure ranges, from really, really dark to really, really bright. And what you can do then is you can take those individual exposures and feed them into a piece of software on your computer or another app, which will make a true professional grade HDR photo, high dynamic range photo. So it would be like if you manually went into your brightness settings and you cranked this all the way to dark to get all of the bright detail, anything that might be clipping or overexposed, and then took individual shots at around one stop apart, all the way into super, super bright so that you could get all of the shadowy detail down in the low light and the low exposure range. And then you were to take all of those photos and feed them into a photo app to make an HDR photo. The bracketing on a Windows phone works very much like how bracketing on a professional SLR works. So you can do that kind of photography right from this Nokia Camera app, which is super, super cool. And so on the whole, performance is very similar to what we used to do in the Nokia Pro app and the Nokia Smart app. The great benefit here is that they're now combined so that we don't have to juggle back and forth between different apps. We can take that photo, we can save it. As you'll notice, like, performance hasn't really sped up a lot. You know, when you're crunching a 41 megapixel image down into something that a dual core processor can handle, we're still dealing with the same sort of limitations. But, you know, the same interface that we use to crop or to reframe or to delete is still here if we want to do that. Or if we can toggle, we can go back to the camera app and then we can come into our photo, our camera reel, if we want to look at previous photos that we've taken. It's all super, super simple now. All of this is now one clean, unified layout, and I think it makes a lot more sense for how people are using their cameras, especially the wonderful cameras built onto Nokia handsets. So folks, that's the new Nokia Camera app. Go hit the update right now. It's totally worth it. I think this is a great piece of software and a great update for those of you rocking Pureview smartphones. It should be available for anything with a Pureview sensor, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this on 920s, 928s, 925s, and of course this monster Nokia Lumia 1020. As always folks, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next video.